Welcome to our first video session. Today we're doing precision jumps and balancing. While we can't do face-to-face sessions at the moment, we thought we'd give you these so you can use them for your one exercise token a day or just as a resource to learn from. If you're going to go outside, make sure you take precautions. I've come out today armed with hand sanitizer and wipes just to make sure I reduce any risk, and please make sure you follow all the other government regulations. With that out of the way, here come the drills. I hope you like them. Here's a warm-up for today's challenges, balance and precision jumps. And just while that's going on, a quick reminder that this video is intended as a guide, so please pick the drills that are appropriate to you and feel free to scale them as you see fit. So I picked obstacles here that were the right size and distance for me. You'll have to be a little bit creative with your environments and see what you can find that's suitable for you. Please remember to do the warm-up as well. It's a good way of keeping yourself safe and to improve your performance. This video was actually recorded over a couple of sessions, and I used my last chance to be able to use the parkour park before it was roped off to record some of it. However, I think this would be a really good opportunity for all of you to look around the environment that's near you and try and find parkour opportunities. You'll probably, with a bit of practice, realise there's a lot more than you initially thought, and it's something we can't teach as much at the classes, so it's a really good opportunity for you to get out there and see what's available. Alright, let's kick it off with some balance. So the first set of exercises we've got are all different walking variations. Find something that you're going to want to balance on. I've got a rail here, and first off try walking forwards, making sure that your feet are pointing forward and you walk heel toe, heel toe. Try not to turn your feet out. We only do that when we're running on rails, and this time we're definitely walking. Once you've had a few goes at going forwards, have a try at going backwards, and then try some of the sideways drills that are shown. So you can do this by standing on the balls of your feet, keeping a soft bend in the knee, and then just shuffling sideways. Once you've got the hang of that, you can try the crossover drill that's shown here as well. I find, again, looking just ahead of my feet kind of helps me keep my balance, but feel free to experiment with it. Next up, we've got the step vault drill. So for most of our students, you'll be familiar with this vault. It uses one hand and one foot. What you want to do for this one is make sure that you keep your weight over your hand and not over your foot. So your weight's over your hand, use your foot to stand up. When the second foot is on next to the first foot, then you can shift your weight over, stand up, and transition into one of the walking drills that's been shown previously. It's actually a little bit harder than it looks, and if you can do it on a fairly chunky obstacle, find something thin or wobbly and see how much harder it is. So walking on rails isn't a problem for you? Well, try it again, but this time with your eyes shut. You'll have to feel through your feet as to what your foot placement is like, and pay very close attention to when you feel the end of the rail so that you don't injure yourself. It's actually quite a fun challenge, and again, I think you'll be surprised how much more difficult it makes it, but it's super rewarding if you can manage it, so go and give it a try. Okay, just to finish this section, here are a few other examples of balance drills you can do. So what I did is I just picked some rails that were a bit higher for me to kind of add a bit of fear. Number one tip here is to never balance on something unless you are prepared to fall off of it. So if you haven't practiced the drills, to save yourself from falling from a high rail, don't go one-to-one, because it would be a very silly thing to do. Other things you can try include maybe trying to stop and squat and turn around on the rails, and also just try maybe unusual objects or things that wobble. Again, just stay safe and practice within your limits. What we'd really like to see as well is how you get on. So send us your clips of interesting things you found to balance on, challenges that you're really proud of, or clips if you'd like some feedback from us. We thought we'd break up the two technical drills with our weekly strength challenge. So this one's all about pushing. We'd like you to try and complete 50 push-ups in as few sets as possible, and we've got a whole bunch of options. General points about push-ups: keep your palms of your hands in line with your armpits, brace your core, like someone's going to punch you in the stomach, squeeze your butt, keep your body tight, and try and do full range of motion, so chest almost to the floor at the bottom, arms straight at the top. So option 1, hands elevated, and you control yourself on the way down. You can place your knees on the floor and get up however you like after that, till you're back at the top, and then again, control on the way down, and repeat. Option 2 is the same as option 1, except this time when you get to the bottom of the rep, you push back up to the top, and then you can continue from there. Option 3 is hands and feet level, control on the way down, chest almost to the floor, push back up to the top, and then continue. Option 4 is with feet elevated. Just make sure if you get to the bottom of the rep that you don't arch your back, which can be tricky sometimes if you elevate your feet a lot. Also, form is way more important to us than which variation you do. It's no good doing option 4, doing a couple of reps with terrible form. Much rather see you do option 2 or 3 and keep good form throughout. Okay, it's precision jump time, and our first drill is sticking the floor. It looks benign, but actually it can be quite tricky. It's good as either a warm-up exercise or as the bulk of a session in itself. Stand on an object that you're comfortable dropping down to the floor from, and when you land, you want to land in a precise spot, feet together, pointing forwards, knees bent, bum back, chest up, and spotting your landing. And then you want to keep your balance there. If you rock forwards or your heels touch the ground, then it doesn't count, and you should do another one. Aim to do a few in a row before you move on to any of the other drills. You want to be consistent here before you even think about landing on an object. After that, we're going to try using the edge. So one of the biggest mistakes people make in parkour when they land jumps is they do not use the edge enough. If you use it properly, it will reduce the force on your body and landings will feel much more comfortable. Even though it looks scarier and sharper, it's by far the best place on any obstacle to land if you want to stop. So we've got a drill here where I use the step vault technique that I used from the balance section earlier to get onto the edge of a wall, and then I try and balance there on the balls of my feet, and keeping my hips back, I try and squat down as much as possible, keeping my feet in contact with the edge. Eventually I'll rock back and drop down to the floor. I put my feet under me and I try and land safely. We've also included a clip here of what you should see when you look down standing on the edge when you stuck a jump. Sorry for the baggy trousers getting in the way, but hopefully you can get an idea of what it should look like. Once you've stuck the floor and you're used to using edge, it's time to jump to an obstacle. Number one tip to remember here is that your feet lead way out in front of you. You want to try and keep your chest up when you're coming into land. Don't bring your face closer to the obstacle just to make it look closer and less scary, because that's how accidents happen. So what I did is I stuck a short jump and then I started jumping to it with less and less power, so I started bouncing. First off, I started bouncing, trying to get my feet back underneath me, and then because I was somewhere soft, and if you find somewhere similar, you can try the same. Try and bounce it, keeping your feet in contact with the edge as long as you can, then rolling onto your back. It's quite a fun drill to do, and it really teaches you to keep your chest up and back, which is mega important for precision jumps. This drill will also teach you that jumps require a lot less power than you think to get your feet to the edge and actually get your weight there, which is really useful for improving your accuracy, which can save your life in parkour. So I recommend every training session going out and trying to do all the previous drills either as a warm-up or as the kind of bulk of the session, depending on where you're at in your parkour journey. They're all super important. And once you're ready to move on from those, I would pick a jump that's somewhere between maybe a 4 and a 7 out of 10 difficult for you, and practice trying to stick it and bounce it, maybe on command, so you can flip a coin and heads for stick and tails for bounce, and then you're committed to one or the other. Just make sure your technical execution is good, and then once you're done with that, you can go and find some challenges that maybe are a bit harder for you. If you'd like an extension on the drills in this video, then you can do what I did, which is to go out and find some precision jumps that were an appropriate challenge for me that day. What I'd recommend you look for are ones that aren't just from one obstacle to another, unless they challenge you somehow. So maybe they're max distance, or it's going down, or you have to turn, or you have to clear an obstacle, or there's a blind landing. The more interesting the better, and again, if you can find some interesting ones, please send them to us so we can have a look. Just to finish this section off, I thought I'd include a bit of my process behind a couple of the jumps that I found quite tricky that day. So the first one is not particularly far. The scare is that you're either going to clip yourself on the rail or miss the wall and kind of scrape down it on the far side. So first of all, I jumped to the rail and then dropped down, and then tried to have less and less power each time. In the end, the solution was to jump as if I was going to the rail, but I was going to land on my heels, and then just choosing to miss the rail at the last second with my heels and hook my feet. kind of behind it, and then that helped me stick it. The second jump was at the same spot, and the scare is that you're going to catch your toes on the rail as you jump over. In the end, this one was actually significantly easier than the previous one, and I was kind of a bit disappointed that I bounced the first one, but I thought the bounce was nice, and you might appreciate seeing the attempt anyway. The last tricky jump had a kind of a nasty rounded edge to land on, but the big problem is the rail that will hit you in the crotch if you mess it up. So the process here was to try and get my feet in the right place whilst keeping my hips high enough that I definitely didn't injure myself. Also, you notice that I had to land with my feet apart on this one. So sometimes there are jumps that you find or challenges that you find where you have to adapt, and they're just as useful as ones where you don't. And that's it for this week. Coming up next week, we've got wall runs and reverse vaults. Any feedback on the videos is greatly appreciated. We'd like to make them as informative as possible, and send us your clips and show us how you got on with the drills. We'd really like to see. Thanks, and catch you next time.